Y ahora estamos aquí.
I feared you once.
¿Sabes por qué?
I thought you embodied all the things I couldn't control.
Pero te seguí llamando.
It took so long for me to listen. And even then, I was still afraid of our embrace.
Ese día, entre la montaña, creí que me escucharías.
I remember the smell of fresh mud. I was a child. I heard you then.
Nunca nos fuimos.
They heard you in the forest. And then our moment came.
Había llovido toda la mañana en el páramo.
We ate fruit and chanted.
Te oí cantar.
There was a raindrop. Your voice with its reflection.
También éramos la brisa.
A bird brought me to you. I sat down under the tree.
¿Y por qué llorabas?
I had never felt your stillness.
Cuando era una niña, tendría yo como 10 u 11 años y tenía un pollito. Y ya habría tenido yo otras mascotas antes, pero por alguna razón ese pollito estaba a mi cuidado. Era como este animal frágil que yo tenía que cuidar. Y un día llegando del colegio me encuentro que se había muerto. Y fue como la primera experiencia de sentir que perdía algo para siempre, ¿no? Y el día que se murió mi pollito, yo tuve el instinto de cantarle una canción, de inventarle una canción. Pues estoy aquí cantándole esta canción, sintiéndome culpable, no sé, un momento muy íntimo en el patio de la casa, sola, y llega esta mujer y se me acerca y me dice, esto fue súper poderoso, me dice, nuestro cuerpo es tierra, el viento es nuestro aliento, nuestra sangre, el agua, y el fuego, el espíritu. Y eso para mí fue como ese primer encuentro con mi conciencia como parte del todo.
Sobre el turó Magdalena, largo proyecto de mar. sobre el turón Magdalena, largo proyecto de mar, isla de pluma y arena, granan a la luz solar, isla de pluma y arena, granan a la luz solar, verde, negro y verde, verde, la selva elástica y densa, verde, negro y verde, verde, la selva elástica y densa, ondula, sueña, se pierde, camina y piensa, ondula, sueña, se pierde, anda, camina y piensa. Y el boga, boga cansado, y el boga, boga callao, y el boga, boga cansado, boga cansado, boga, y el boga que boga, boga, preso en su aguda piragua, y el remo, rema, rema, interroga el agua, y el boga que boga,
Bueno, pues yo me siento muy conectada con las plantas sagradas, las plantas divinas, los honguitos, ayahuasca, el peyote, todas esas plantas que nos hacen reflejar como adentro de nosotros mismos. Como el mundo de las plantas es muy externo, ¿no? Vemos todo afuera, los árboles, el cielo, pero una de esas plantas a veces tiene el poder de hacernos reflejar a nuestro interior, al espacio interior que nosotros tenemos. Nos ayudan a ver para adentro. Ese es el poder de las plantas sagradas y divinas. Y a mí me han enseñado mucho, son como, más que nada son como mis maestros o mis maestras en esta vida. Me han enseñado mucho, mucho, mucho. Y también entra el concepto de la sanación, o sea, los curanderos, los que trabajan con las plantas para ayudar a gente. Y te enseñan más bien, porque las plantas no te curan, o esas plantas lo que hacen es te enseñan a curarte a ti mismo. Entonces es cuando empiezan las lecciones de las vidas y empiezas a reflejar como tu propia vida, tus traumas, tus shadows, tus sombras, tu luz también. Entonces, eso es como parte de cómo yo me conecto con la naturaleza y las plantas.
I introduce you to a model for our future. Look at it closely, as all of its components speak of multiplicity and justice, of substance and beauty. The eco-feminist system grows rhizomatically, embracing all of its components. The plural other builds membranes of accumulated knowledge to protect you against erasure and dualism. The eco-feminist star nurtures this ecosystem, yet its connection to a larger entanglement of elements is what kindles bodies of water, fosters vegetation, and transforms all vitality. To acknowledge its parts is to experience a life where there is no violence, only careful resolution, where difference is recognized yet decentered, where energy flows in the becoming of integrity. Within this model have developed for centuries plants of all sizes that give home to ecotopias of harmony and equity. Community networks that fight against the toxic sediment left by Carboniferous and patriarchal periods. Notice how the oblong communication vessels send out signals of pleasure and resistance. Reach for the system's filaments of interspecies exchange and celebration. Observe the horizontal growth creating a non-hierarchical distribution of nutrients. Participate in the shedding of excess and the redistribution of materiality. Welcome to the feminist ecosystem.
Pertenezco a la red de mujeres Sembrando Futuro y hace más o menos 19 años trabajo con McHugh. Trabajamos con derechos, con la red de mujeres y desde ahí venimos sembrando huertas comunitarias para nosotras mismas, de ahí tener un sustento para coger la verdura, comérnosla. Y también me gusta trabajar con comunidad, trabajamos con la señora Ana en Brisas del Volado. Nos gusta la canéndula para la medicina, para hacer las cremas, para todo. Todo lo que es natural, nos gusta todo lo natural. Que no tenga químicos, que sea sembrado así sin químicos ni nada, nos gusta sembrar.
Yo pensé que estaba acá. Ay, caramba. Yo como mujer que me ha tocado vivir todas unas violencias, porque soy una mujer desplazada de mi territorio, donde tenía un espacio hermoso, donde también cultivaba. Mi familia es campesina. Desgraciadamente me tocó salir de mi territorio por lo mismo que estoy haciendo acá, por la lucha de las comunidades menos favorecidas, ¿cierto?
Tu primer semestre, ¿para qué 900 cosas? ¿En serio?
Pues a mí me gustaría que fuera un mundo que pudiéramos cada uno tener su propio territorio en cada barrio, en cada vereda y sembrar todos los productos que son naturales. Ahorita lo que necesitamos es que se unan muchas mujeres para hacer un trabajo todos en unidad y que todos podamos hacer un mundo diferente.
Ah, no, que me preste la olla para sacarle a la momia ahí. ¿Y esta bien?
Señora María, ¿de quién es esa canastilla suya?
Todas mis hermanas también se vinieron y dejaron por allá, pues, que los que siembran son mis primos. Los primos son los que están allá siembran.
Creo que un poco el mundo ideal que me sueño es como un poco también por la apuesta que tenemos las feministas de la interseccionalidad, es como acabar con esas dinámicas de poder que obviamente depende de muchos ámbitos como sexistas, clasistas, racistas, que eso conlleva un montón de cuestiones prácticas como también salir de la ciudad, volver a habitar
las tierras que se nos han arrebatado, que no hemos podido trabajar, y que un poco como que las bases de esa nueva socialización sean la solidaridad, la cooperación. En ese tejer lazos solidarios también volvamos a algo que me parece bien potente como de las mujeres, de trabajar con mujeres, y es como recuperar saberes, que esta dinámica de las huertas como que también es una apuesta bien importante por no solamente la soberanía alimentaria, sino como la soberanía corporal en términos de dejar de usar, digamos, tantos medicamentos o ser más consciente del impacto que causó en la naturaleza, y también cómo aportar y como cuál es el habitar el espacio y el territorio. Creo que es algo bien importante para nosotras desde acá, como desde las periferias y desde el sur.
I grew up in a river valley. I've always had a pretty intense connection with trees. In fact, when I was a teenager, there were thunderstorms that would last for days every spring. I really loved them. Had kind of a way of communing with nature. Whenever there would be a thunderstorm, I would go outside in the pouring rain and lift my arms up and just pretend to be a tree, absorbing the life-giving. But then when I was 12, my dad moved out to western Colorado, and we drove out to this wide open space where the sky is just enormous, and this incredible like blue dome that stretches for forever, it seems like, and I just felt such joy. I couldn't explain why, except that it felt very free. Like you could run in any direction and just never stop.
I spent some time in Haiti as an educator. A friend of mine had set up this nonprofit. And during the course of my conversations with him, I learned that the females in this village, all of them, had to hike out to get their water every day. But for some reason, I was inspired to go with them one day. So I did. There's like 8 of us, and we're taking off, and we're doing this thing. And we get to this watering hole. It was relatively big. And the water had come down out of this mountain, kind of pooled in this pond. and then there's a little trickle that went off downstream. And the women used this opportunity to be with this water to wash their clothes and do whatever else they had. They would gather up the water in these buckets, and they all put this on their heads, and they walked back. And so a round trip is maybe 3.5 to 4 hours, I guess. And I wasn't carrying anything, and I was exhausted. It was hot. It was incredibly tedious. And the thing that was really fascinating to me about it is this is what they do every single day of their lives. There's like not one day that they don't go out and do this. And as soon as their daughters are old enough to actually carry water, well, that's what their daughters end up doing. So they don't do anything else with their lives really other than cooking and cleaning. And then after lunch, they have to go back. So it's 2 trips a day. So you're putting in 8 hours on the road every day just in water fetching. And it just broke my heart. So there's always I'm always balancing my water usage in my house and trying to conserve it as much as possible, because I just can't stand the idea of me having that kind of privilege when there are so many people whose lives depend on something that we could easily take for granted. So.
Some years ago, I got very sick, and after a full year of going from doctor to doctor and being told that I was just making it up and I was just calling for attention, they found a fungi growing on my lung, and I was so sure that I was gonna die. I couldn't breathe. It hurt to breathe so much. And when the treatment started to clear out my lung, I suddenly became aware of how the fungi on my lung was affecting the person that I am. When I started taking the medication, I suddenly became terrified of light and hypersensitive to patterns. And when I would talk to my doctor, he was like, oh yeah, it's just part of the process to kill fungi is to make your body not a acceptable space for that. And fungi make you think like one, be like one. So you tend to eat more sugars when you're growing a fungi inside you, or hide from light, or crave more like humid environments because it's affecting all your being. And it just made me think, like truly understand how we're all very complicated and deeply entwined with each other, from fungi to plants to animals. There's just this really complex ecosystem that we live in. And I became, once I was able to breathe again, I feel such a solidarity towards plants and finding that state of homeostasis, like balance. And like since then, I feel much more connected to the idea of community and just a wish for living and growing in so many ways, like fungi showed me by almost killing me.
I grew up in the suburbs of New York City on Long Island, and we had a few really incredible trees in our backyard. And I feel like these two trees were some of the first sites of my own kind of like world building and imagining. There was one tree that was completely covered in these like really prickly small leaves, but once you pulled them aside, the interior was completely hollowed out. So it was this sort of like cathedral, or it felt like a cathedral to me as a child. And it felt like I was really entering this other world and ecosystem. The smells were different, the sounds were different. So the whole bottom floor was these like crunchy, prickly leaves. And I grew really attached to like different kinds of actions with the tree. Like it felt really important to me to like brush the leaves into these like particular patterns to the side, to like leave the trunk of the tree bare. And I contrast that experience with this tree, which was very much around like the ground and groundedness and like looking up at this cathedral, to another tree that we had that had like a very reddish, shaggy bark, and it was the tallest tree. And that was another space that I liked to occupy sometimes when I was weeding, was climbing to the top of the tree and having this different perspective on my house and my neighbors, and again experiencing the way that like voices and sounds and smells move differently in that space, and kind of being transported.
I was in Japan a couple years ago. It was at the Akiyoshidai National Park. And I remember being surrounded by like a canopy of lush green trees And it was the first time where I felt really connected to nature because I grew up in San Francisco, and the only times I could connect to nature was over the summers. And so in Japan, there was a little trail that would circle around the small mountain. And I made it a ritual to walk through this trail every day. I remember feeling really scared, like that something bad could happen to me. And I had to just sit with this deep isolation and to listen to my solitude. And it made me realize that when I walk through a manicured path, it's almost like the safety line where I could just go on autopilot. But here, I had to really get in touch with my senses. So as I was walking, I could feel that my feet could slip at any time, trudging through the damp soil and the mossy rocks, or a swarm of insects would be brushing across my face, and the vines and the bamboo shoots would wrap around and kind of obstruct my vision. But it was also very liberating being enmeshed in all of that, feeling like I was the only human and just feeling really small, feeling like lost.